Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For purposes of today's assignment for the discussion board, I looked at four different articles. One of the articles was the Betsy Ross narrative written by Laura Ulrich, which is a little short piece, which really questions the traditional narrative that we were taught in grade school about the contributions of Betsy Ross by looking at the context in which this history was written, which was the Civil War time frame and the need for an American hero who was a woman, and also, she questions whether there's evidence in support of whether Betsy Ross made that first flag or not. So, really, she's trying to open up a discussion board for this topic. Now, for the other individual who I had to choose for the purposes of this assignment, I chose Abigail Adams because I was intrigued by her because I have no idea who she was aside from being the wife of John Adams. So I decided to take a look at a couple of articles in regards to Abigail Adams. Now, one thing I do want to note about these articles is the time frames in which they are written. I think the advent of social history has really expanded the borders of the study of the American Revolution to not just include the political history and military history, but to also include other topics as well, i.e., religion, i.e., African Americans in the American Revolution, i.e., economics and trade, and other topics that would not traditionally have been covered in a traditional historical format. So the first article I'm going to take a look at is from Lane Crane, and she really points out that Abigail Adams' contribution to the American Revolution came in the form of not so much as picking up a gun to go fight alongside the men, but in the form of um, her questions and her rebellion, if you will, against what was considered societal norms of what it was to be a lady, of what it was to be a domesticated a wife, to stay at home. Um, those kind of gender norms, she really questioned, and actually in her roles that she would have to take on upon John Adams leaving the household, would prove that a new norm, if you will, for women. So I found this article very intriguing and very interesting. The second article I looked at was by Edith Gales. Now, she takes a much different approach to Abigail Adams because she points out that in light of all the evidence in regards to Abigail Adams, she took on a different role during the American Revolution, yet she still held on to those conservative feelings and values in regards to women in a domestic role in the home. Now, Elle does point out that Abigail Adams had to take on the responsibilities normally associated with a male head of household, but she points out that Abigail Adams did have some sort of struggles, for example, dealing with inflation, creating a budget during that time, also dealing with the labor force, and also serving as a landlord, pointing out a couple times where she did not completely succeed. So she takes a more conservative approach to Abigail Adams. Now, the last article was a short article by Bonnie Smith, and this article is rather intriguing because she points out that Abigail Adams was a revolutionary and was a feminist, and she points out that a lot of it came from her upbringing, um, and that she was benevolent and she was family oriented during that time as a mother and also as a head of household. She also points out she was a prolific writer. She engaged in conversations by pen about politics, wars, prominent citizens, daily life, and personal relationships. Now, it was kind of considered taboo for women at the time to talk about politics and wars, so therefore, she kept her correspondence with Mercy Otis Warren on paper. Now, Bonnie Smith also points out that Abigail Adams was very committed to rights for women and African Americans, which I did not know about. So that was definitely something I knew I learned. And her sense of benevolence and morality came from her parents, and her father was a pastor. So these three articles gave me a new light in regards to Abigail Adams, in regards to her role as a fighter for women's rights during the American Revolution at a time when maybe it wasn't so popular. So definitely expanded my broader horizons on the American Revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your time. Please let me know what you think.